Rugby league has been a very competitive sport in the last few years. The demands of the New South Wales Rugby League for a team to be competitive, not only against other football codes but against all forms of entertainment, is a rather stringent condition of entering the competition. But we don't have any doubts about Newcastle. Given that they can come up with the initial viability, their potential amongst an area of 600,000 people, with the rugby league structure that you already have here and the juniors that you must be able to develop in the next couple of years, it must be a very strong consideration. And indeed it's very important to the rugby league that it's extended into the Newcastle area.
Meanwhile, Maitland Club had a luncheon today to announce the club's sponsor, the Maitland Tyre Service, for season 87. President Trevor Varley looks forward to a good year with new coach Neil Moy.
He's real professional, is Neil Moy, and he's got the boys jumping out of their skin and they just can't wait for the competition to start.
So 1987 is going to be a good year for Maitland. I mean, it's not that far back in 1983 that you won it, but you've had a couple of ordinary years, haven't you?
We have indeed. You know, building up again, and I think this does happen to clubs, and we're hoping this could be our year again this year.
The Maitland juniors, from under-20s down to under-16s, are the talk of the competition. You've really got some talented kids here. Maybe another Panowitz, Brian Burke, Maxie McMahon. We could reel them off, couldn't we, Alan West?
We could for sure, yeah. And there's quite a few of those boys trialling out for the grade now. And we've won the under-16s for the last 3 years, and the under-18s we won last year. So we're hoping for a good season again with the juniors.
Money, money, money. Fund managers, stockbrokers, insurance companies and building societies were all at City Hall today peddling a dazzling array of products. It was the place to go if you wanted to find out how to make these go further. All the experts were on hand today and will be there again tomorrow. There is also a full program of seminars with experts talking on the areas of most interest to you and your hip pocket.
Parramatta won 34 points to 20 and lost no friends as they prepare for the season's opening match with Balmain next week. On the other hand, Newcastle must have made some friends with a gutsy display against the highly paid professionals. It was a 6 tries to 3 win, but was only 10 points to 8 at the break. After the first try to Graham Atkins, and Parramatta led 4-2.
Got the hands too. Atkins through the dummy. Graham Atkins is over the line, is he? Yes, sir. First try of the match goes to the Eels. He's forwards well in an organised way.
Newcastle in front with this good try as the class of Peter Walsh showed out.
Away to Walters, away to Walsh, cut a man out. David Hill's into the daylight. David Hill will score. Yes, sir. Wowee, what a good start, what a beaut pass from Peter Walsh. Short of the line.
Then this penalty try to international second rower Peter Wynne.
Freddie Grant. Played the ball forward, dived on the loose ball. Those busted eyes.
In the second half, the Eels skipped away to a 28 lead.
Goes to Kenny, away to
tries
Growth now.
Firstly to
Growth's got to be put on the ground. Get hold of him. Down it goes now to Muggleton. Oh, geez, dangerous Growth. Back to Kenny. Away to the wing three-quarter Delroy. Taken down but scored the try. And Eric, no full back at home. Walsh hasn't noticed it, no doubt. Oh, over the top. Jackson, Jackson the intercept, and he won't get an easier try that in 1987. Press away now to Steve Walters. Walters out to Freddie Grant, has Growth with him. Through the dummy at Growth and scored. Oh, yeah! Oh, Brian Jackson.
Jackson scored again, then Kenny put it beyond doubt as he turned nothing into something.
A good strong ball. Kenny picked it up. Brett Kenny from there to score. Oh, yeah! Give Kenny the ball and the try line in sight. See you later.
today, I thought.
Peter Sterling welcomes Newcastle's
again, for Newcastle, it's a good sign with them hopefully coming into the Sydney competition. Probably a place they should have been a few years ago. I think they can go in with a fair bit of confidence.
Cup here, the talented Stayers' big moment of 1986 was this win in the Moonee Valley Cup. Thence to his last run, the big one, the Melbourne Cup, and a creditable 7th. Today he was put over 1,200 metres and pleased both jockey and trainer with his solid hitter.
And Reckless Tradition 3 lengths away at the rear of the field. Homeward bound, they've got 350 to go, and Court Region tackling 10 Rich. Now 2 lengths away to Wongaron, down the outside Regal Value, Wholesale Boom, and further back to Mr. Tasman. 10 Rich, Court Region, Regal Value tackles him. On the outside is Wholesale Boom wanting to duck in, and he's under pressure, and Regal Value 100 to go. Grabbed a half length to 10 Rich. Wholesale Boom and Court Region, but Regal Value too good. Regal Value a length on the line to Court Region. Third 10 Rich or Wholesale Boom.
Terrific, 1,200 metres, well, a bit short for him and all that, but the old boy, he felt terrific, and I'm sure he's going to come up great again.
Oh, he hasn't done a lot of work. He's long pace work, that's all he ever does, really.
Right.
He's come up nice.
What do you got planned for him now?
I'll run him here in 3 weeks' time in the Australian Airlines Cup. Then he'll go to race on the Rawson Stakes, wait for age race.
Then what? Sydney Cup?
Yeah, the Sydney Cup is his main race. What we're setting him for this year.
Regal Value won the race. He's back from injury. Remember him? He was in the blanket finish in the 1985 NBN camera.
It's Saturn Sand and Regal Value in on the outside. Riverdale.
This was as close as cameras could get to the fire in the Wyong Industrial Estate. Police cordoned off the area as brigades from Newcastle, Sydney and the Central Coast controlled the blaze and contained the dangerous vapour. It was this vapour from the heated insecticide Folidol that resulted in 22 firemen being taken to hospital for tests. They were all later released. District Fire Inspector Rex Smith says that although there were some officers suffering from nausea and headaches, this precaution with chemical fires has now become routine.
Firefighters, the Board of Fire Commissioners' instructions are that where there's any possible or remote possibility of a contact with a chemical, that they are transported and blood tested.
Last night's fire has proved an expensive exercise for the fire brigade. Several $1,000s worth of contaminated uniforms have been sent to Sydney to be destroyed. In the light of the day, the extent of the fire was clear and the clean-up began. It had been confined to a 5 by 10 metre area, and although the blaze was under control within half an hour, it took another 5 hours to ensure that the leaks from the 4 ruptured drums were contained and that no other areas had been contaminated. A spokesman for the company, marketing manager Ben Goodwin, says the cause of the fire still has to be determined. He says an electrical fault and foul play have been ruled out.
This morning's meeting at the Newcastle Workers' Club in Newcastle was called for the 60 men representing each section of the dockyard and unions to decide their next move. The first concrete decision was to place picket lines at the dockyard because the unions believe some labour has been taken in since the men walked out on Tuesday. The meeting also discussed tactics for handling the issue from here on and for the meeting with the Premier Barry Unsworth this evening. Newcastle Trades Hall Secretary Peter Barrick was hopeful but not overly confident some ground would be made at that meeting. He says the main stumbling block at the moment is the issue of retrenchments considering merit rather than seniority.
We would hope, as we have hoped all along, that the issue, this last remaining issue that currently has the dockyard closed, that we can get some common ground for discussion and look for a resolution to the problem.
By late this afternoon, though, there was still no word of any outcome from the meeting with the Premier.
Yes, I have. I think
Yesterday's
the unions have
meeting with
adopted a
Premier
responsible
Unsworth
attitude.
hasn't
They
made any
recognise
headway
that there
in
are problems
resolving
at
the
the
dispute.
dockyard which have
The
to...
300 workers who attended today's mass meeting made it clear they want to continue their fight, and they aren't satisfied with the government's proposal. That is, that the next 40 retrenchment notices will be issued to both the unions and the workers. It proposes that the workers may appeal against these notices to Deputy President of the Industrial Commission, John Varnum, who will in turn report the discussion to the Minister for Public Works, Laurie Brereton. The government also wants the final selection of workers to be based on merit and performance, not as the unions want, on seniority. Secretary of Transport Council says financial support and promises of sympathetic industrial action have been made by the Stoneman and Coalpist Union and a number of other unions. He says they realise the government's preference for retrenchments and
longer
solving
look at
problems
relocation, but
may
look at
soon affect
sackings.
them.
So quite obviously the government is establishing a dangerous precedent. There's also the hidden political agenda of the move of the new right, and I don't believe that any Labor government, either state or federally, has a secure tenure of office into the future. What the state government is doing is creating an instrument by which future Conservative governments can make an unmerciful attack on the trade union movement in general.
Although the picket lines were deserted during the meeting, the unions say they will step up their campaign to make sure that the dockyard remains idle and the Pilbara stays in its floating dock. On the issue of the 10 questions for the Premier printed in Wednesday's newspaper, the Trades Hall says Mr Unsworth has refused to answer them. The Minister for Public Works, Laurie Brereton, says following today's meeting it's clear that the workers want the dockyard to close. He says otherwise they would have accepted the Oakes report recommendations and at least saved 180 jobs.
The winner finally was the St George skiff Esprit Light Cooler, sailed by Dennis Tanko, but only after a race-off with national champion Gavin Jones in Assia from Manly. For Tanko, it was sweet success indeed, as the Manly skipper had pipped him in both the recent Nationals and the New South Wales title. The two boats were equal on points at the end of the three-race final, with the local boat Pacific Poker Machines' David Anstey in third place and defending champion Alan Cummings in Swansea fourth. The series, involving 32 boats and 40-odd races, started yesterday and completed today with a thrilling sail-off needed to split the top two boats. The winner received $1,000 and medals from the Commonwealth Bank, with the runner-up claiming $800. A total of $7,000-odd was distributed in what has become a most popular form of skiff sailing.
Mrs Gray was attending the opening of the Lovett Room. She decided it was an appropriate occasion to present the library's rare books collection with an important addition. A Picture of Australia was written by Robert Mowdy in 1829. It was published by Whitaker, Treacher and Company in London and was specially bound for its owner. That owner, as described on the surviving bookplate, was Robert Nicholas Fowler, who later became the Lord Mayor of London in the 1880s. Mrs Gray says the book is particularly interesting as it mentions the site of Newcastle when it was known only as the County of Northumberland.
One reason why I wanted it to be here is that it was actually published in 1829 before much was known about the Hunter Valley, and it has a great description of the area, but saying that it continues indefinitely into the interior, which has not yet been discovered.
And what part will this particular book play in the Newcastle City Library?
Well, it will go, Mr Smith tells me, into his very excellent rare book collection. And from there, it'll be made use of by students and by people who are interested in fine printing and in publications and in bindings.
Okay, thank you, Mrs Gray. We'll have...
A lifetime of collecting historic photographs of Newcastle, many from his own camera, presented Mr Lovett with two problems. where to house his collection and how to share it with the people of Newcastle. Yesterday, the Lovett Room was opened on the second floor of the Newcastle Library and a permanent changing exhibition was established. The exhibition space was made available through the cooperation of the Newcastle City Council and the Newcastle Region Public Library. Donations from Colin Allied and Howard Smith helped in setting up the exhibition and provided for a darkroom. Mr Lovett said the opening marked the achievement of his ambitions for many years past. And despite collecting more than 200,000 photographs over the years, Mr Lovett could still point out his favourite.
It's the home of my grandparents on Strait, where my father was born, so it must be number one.
The exhibition will change monthly and is open to the public Monday through to Saturday.
Is part.
Local
Mr.
politicians,
Howard
business
on
people
a
and the
two-day
press
visit
took
to
the
Hunter
opportunity
Valley, which he
yesterday
says is
to meet
part of
Mr
a
Howard
pattern
at the
of visits
Mirrabel
to
Shire
rural and
Council.
outer metropolitan
Little
areas.
discussion centred
After
on
the
local
usual welcoming
affairs.
ceremony, Mr.
Instead,
Howard was
Mr
quickly
Howard
on the
defended the
defensive
Liberal
on the
National
issue
Party
of an
coalition
early election.
against
Prime Minister
speculation
Hawke
that it
yesterday
was a
floated
spent
the idea
force.
of an early
He
election
said,
which would
alone or
enable
with the
ALP
Nationals, the
to
Liberal
capitalise
Party will
on
fight
problems
tooth
in
and
the
nail to win a
coalition
majority at
sparked
the
by
next
Joe's
federal
recent
election.
But
I think both of those interests are served if the coalition continues, but if it doesn't continue, I can certainly promise you that the Liberal Party will be going flat out to win a majority in its own right, and part of winning a majority in its own right will be to, of course, to win a seat like this, but I don't...
At 10 o'clock this morning, Mr Howard will attend the Maitland City Council for a civic reception in his honour. This is his final day in the region.
I hope that the 26 members of the National...
Around 8:30 this morning, two cars collided on the corner of King and Derby Street. The 19-year-old driver of the Torana was attempting a right-hand turn when it crossed the path of a Rodeo utility. Both drivers suffered only minor injuries, but traffic was held up on both of the main thoroughfares into the city. For farmers, the wet weather has put the smiles back on their faces. Property owners from the drought-stricken areas of Wingham, Gloucester and Maitland are describing the rains as a godsend. A low-pressure system over the northern half of the state has brought this week's wet conditions. A pool of cold air in the upper atmosphere, combined with an onshore flow of moist air, has resulted in rainfall levels rising and temperatures falling. Near the coast, the average temperatures are 9 degrees lower than last year, while in the upper Hunter, temperatures are more than 11 degrees below the monthly average. But good news is ahead. The rains are expected to break tomorrow with clearer and warmer conditions for Friday and Saturday, but the forecast predicts a southerly change on Sunday.
The final rejection of the government's retrenchment on merit policy came from a mass meeting of workers this afternoon. Conferences last night with Premier Unsworth brought what the Trades Hall Secretary Peter Barrick described as a concession. But by morning, the government had reiterated its determination to retrench on merit and not seniority. The result, a motion from the floor at today's mass meeting that a strike already nearly 2 weeks old would continue. It was carried as one.
We spent over 2.5 hours at a meeting last night. It was nearly 11:15 when we came out of that meeting. We walked out understanding that there had been a shift in the government position. Had given an opportunity for us to get closer together. Had given an opportunity for the outstanding issues to be put before the Deputy President. And when we read the public statements today, it seems to contradict all that we understood took place in the meeting.
The government has stuck to its threat to close down the yard. It called a news conference in Sydney late this evening where Mr Brereton, the Works Minister, announced that the dockyard will close.
I want to make it absolutely clear that it's not the government closing the dockyard. This dockyard is being closed because of the decision of the men on the job to reject the reform package that could have saved 180 jobs. And that's a thing of great regret, both for this government and indeed for Newcastle.
So the dockyard will be closed. Will it be sold off?
The dockyard facilities will be put to public tender, and the government will be seeking to maximise the creation of employment opportunities in the Newcastle region. The floating dock will remain in Newcastle but be put out to tender.
The comprehensive rehabilitation program will take more than 2 years to complete. Major work will be undertaken on the power plant and stacks. Special attention is also being given to the use of anti-pollution devices such as filters, which will be placed in the stacks. The program is designed to catch up on technological advances made since Munmora's commissioning 20 years ago. Spokesman for the Electricity Commission, Rod Preston, says the work will add 15 years to the life of the power station and ensure the continued long-term employment of the workers.
In the early Italian theatre style of Commedia dell'arte, the play sets out to expose a timeless trait of mankind.
Cuckold is a husband whose wife is being or has been unfaithful to him. That's all it means. It's one of the staple things of popular comedy.
And there are 3 in this play?
Yes, we've got 3 of them. They're all old. They all have delusions of grandeur, and that's their problem.
The farce centres around 9 characters, some of which wear masks. As the plot thickens, the masks play an important role in the comedy's success.
The roles of the masks is a fairly complex one because, in fact, it's a very basic form of impersonation. You know, you put on a mask and you become that character. And what's happening in this case is that the 3 old men put on the 3 masks, and they're very different masks. They've got a very different quality about them. They immediately assume the physical characteristics of the masks. It's great fun to work with masks.
The 3 Cockles opens tomorrow night at the University Drama Theatre, and audiences can expect a humorous look into the farcical life of friendly neighbours.
The basis of this play is popular comedy, and that's what it sets out to do, and I hope we'll give people a taste of 17th century Italian marketplaces.
He is a lover too, and a Pantalonian's wife.
In tonight's news, picket lines at Ingham chicken hatcheries in the Morisset area are being manned for the 2nd consecutive day. Many of the workers have received dismissal notices after ignoring an Industrial Commission order to return to work.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
It was perhaps one of Mr Dawkins' more pleasant duties, for a change giving Australian producers a pat on the back. He made it clear vineyards such as Wyndham Estate have made their mark internationally in a highly competitive industry, and it's this sort of initiative the government is trying to foster.
Do you think eventually we could corner a fair section of the world market?
Well, I think that depends on how much of our local production we're prepared to dedicate to the overseas market. And that really depends on the attitude of the industry here in terms of how much they want to put into developing markets overseas. It's a very big international market, it's a highly competitive one, but it's one that our industry has showed that it can do well in.
Mr Dawkins says local wine producers are unlikely to receive any federal government assistance, nor do they need it, having demonstrated that they can compete successfully overseas.
Well, I don't think that's being sought at the moment, and I'm not sure that it's necessary. We're seeing the success stories mount up without any specific programs of assistance, and we're just saying to this industry and to other industries in Australia that they can do well in international markets, and what we want them to do is go out and have a try and win in the way that this industry has.
We've got riders from South Africa as well as interstate coming up to get ready for the Australian titles, which are held next month in April.
This territory we've seen the boys riding over today would be regarded pretty simple for the expert rider, I suppose, would it?
Yeah, it's the expert riders, they've got a lot more harder terrain. It's a lot of handlebars in and out of trees and downhills that you can hardly walk down, and same for going up the other side. It's a lot harder than what people would imagine, and it takes a lot of conditioning and skill to get through some of the places we do send the riders through.
What are we talking about for the experts in terms of distance on Sunday?
The experts will be riding roughly 220 kilometres through the Waddington State Forest, and the novice riders or clubman riders will be doing the abbreviated course somewhere around 140 kilometres. Experts will take 6 hours roughly, and the novice or clubman will be around 4.5 hours.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Warren. The State Rail Authority, as part of cost-cutting measures, has announced proposed changes to its weekend shifts for its employees. The unions say the changes in the shifts could mean a loss of income for many of their members.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.
Woy Woy has the highest ratio of pensioners per head of population in Australia. During the past 10 years, the close-knit community has raised $500,000 for a nursing home. The proposed site is a block of land adjacent to Woy Woy Hospital. It's owned by the State Health Department. Approval in principle was granted for the project, but delay followed delay after an appeal was lodged by a rival developer, Moran Management Group. Well, that appeal was recently withdrawn. The government has committed $200,000 to the project, and the lease on the land is expected to be signed this week. The member for Pete's, Tony Doyle, says much of the credit goes to the region's senior citizens.
It's been a project which has really captured the community's imagination, and I think it's been the major local issue here on the Woy Woy Peninsula for about the last 5 or 6 years.
The announcement was just the sort of happy news the residents of the peninsula needed to help them with their Senior Citizens Week celebrations. For the third consecutive year, residents gathered at Memorial Park for a huge barbecue. It was a chance for the peninsula's senior citizens to catch up with friends and enjoy the sunshine. The Ettalong Beach War Memorial Club had a big hand in the barbecue, while students from Woy Woy High School helped out serving lunch. Was the day a success?
Very nice. It's a lovely day, and I think everyone's very happy.
Oh yes, very much. Yes, it is. My friends the same. They're enjoying themselves.
Senior citizens can enjoy their special week in a multitude of ways. On Thursday and Friday, pensioners will be able to travel free on most public transport services.
I'd like a drink. What have you got?
Wow, we've got a Lime Spider, Seventh Heaven, Sunset Beach.
I'd like a drink. What have you got?
Wow, we've got a Lime Spider, Seventh Heaven, Sunset Beach, Headbanger.
I'll have a Sunset Beach.
How are you? You been drinking?
Of immediate benefit to motorists, however, will be the opening of this crossing over the Hunter River at Hexham, which heads towards Raymond Terrace. The Department of Main Roads says it will be open within a month, in time for Easter.
Good food, cocktails, with no alcohol, of course.
Lake Macquarie City Council last night gave the go-ahead to the $2 million extension, which the club has tried to get approval for the past 15 months.
You've had a hard time getting this through council. Has that caused you many problems?
Well, it's obviously increased our costs. The delay has obviously caused that.
The extensions will provide an arcade of several shops on Moneybun Road, leading into a new larger foyer. The shops will be an innovation to the Newcastle club scene, but according to Secretary-Manager Charles Johns, the system is working well in some Sydney clubs. He says the shops will complement the activities of the club and in some cases formalising the existing services such as a tab, gift shop and video outlet. Work is expected to begin within the next month and it should be finished by Christmas.
If you were there today, you could discuss aspects of the emergency services, learn some fine French cooking, get into condition, catch a fish, or investigate wind speed and direction. That is, if you're under 5. Later, there was the chance to cheer on a favourite TV star. More than 1,000 parents and children gathered for the Newcastle Zone Playgroup's picnic day today. The day was run by volunteers, and publicity officer Jenny Lois says that this is the only way that they could put on the event. She says their aim is to give the children who aren't at school something different to do, as well as their parents the day off. There are 30 playgroups operating in the Newcastle area, all of which were involved today. Each year the playgroup committee organises activities such as a teddy bear's picnic, puppet shows, concerts and today's fun day. Donations from the picnic go towards telethon.
Students at Newcastle University today took their protest over the introduction of administration charges and delays in Austudy payments to the Vice-Chancellor. While Professor Morgan agrees with the protesting students, he says he'll still enforce the charge.
Join Ray Deneen and Anna Manzoni for all the news tonight at 6.